Alright, welcome back to another episode of Pro Gear Reviews. Today we're going to be detail stripping the ISSC MK22 or the GSG 15. First and foremost, you want to remove the sling points that you have attached to the rifle because we're going to be removing the stock, and you want to separate the upper and lower receiver. Next, you're going to want to get a set of gloves. I wear the Dickies work gloves because they have a rubber palm and the oil has a tendency not to stick to them. On the top of the upper receiver, there's a bolt and nut in one. It's a bolt that seats into itself, so you're going to need the Allen key tool that's provided to remove this. So it's on both sides there. And then once you've removed that, you're going to want to remove the final bolt on the plate or the face plate for the stock, which is located here inside this large circle. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to do that. And once this is broken down, you'll have access to continue stripping past this point. So you'll have the exposed upper receiver, and you'll be able to remove the bolt carrier group. So again, you got to remove this nut, which uses a larger Allen key, and you have to be careful doing it because it is under pressure. That silver cylinder there has a spring that's compressed on it. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but that silver cylinder in the spring puts a lot of pressure on the back plate. It's also why the manufacturer indicates that you are not to fire it without the stock attached, because of this function. It's what stops the bolt carrier group from flying backwards into your body. So once that's removed, you can see all the carbon buildup inside the upper receiver. This is exactly why I do a detailed strip, because based on the manufacturer's directions, we would all get a lot of stoppages and failures to feed, etc. So ensure that you are doing your proper rifle maintenance. Next, you're going to take the lower receiver and you're going to clean as much of it as you can. I don't go into too much detail on this part because the only part it really contains is the trigger sear and the mechanism for the semi-automatic limiter. So I do a good clean on that, but I don't remove all the internal mechanisms for the trigger group. I do go into some of the nooks and crannies with a Q-tip, so right where the mag well is and the springs and stuff like that, I make sure there's no buildup or sand or anything up in there, and then I'm done. So now that that's all clean, we're going to move on to the next. So now that we're on to the bolt carrier group, I'm going to explain a few of the finer details and some of the functionings of it. You can see there's a lot of buildup and oil onto it, but we're just going to give that a wipe down later. For now, I'm going to explain just how the bolt face works. So, similarly to the M16 platform or the M4, whichever you choose to call it, the bolt face has a internal firing pin. Now on this one, the pin, I would not recommend stripping past this point and removing the pin. It doesn't seem as if there's too much requirement for it as a rimfire. And that long cylindrical piece that you see at the front there, that's actually just the part that feeds the next round into the chamber. Those springs that you see inside of it are actually the buffer springs. So again, to compare it to the AR-15 or the M16 platform, it has a buffer spring to return it to to return the seal for the bolt face, so it completes the whole cycle. But instead of one buffer spring, it has two. The reasoning for this is because they had to condense the whole platform because there's no stock for the spring to go into. That silver plate on the side of the lower receiver is actually what nests into the bolt carrier group. And it's my understanding that it's this mechanism that prevents it from cycling faster than semi-automatic. Inside the magwell, you can see that it feeds directly into the bolt face. And we're going to give it a wipe down. You'll notice that I'm using a flathead screwdriver and a cleaning rag in order to get into all the little nooks and crannies, because on the bolt carrier group there's actually quite a bit of them. Even with this, there's going to be some residual oil and carbon buildup because of the way the mechanism works. So you want to hold the cloth next to the spring and the bolt and cycle it a few times to make sure you get that cleaned. Even after this, there's still going to be quite a bit of carbon and oil left in where the chamber area is. So in order to get access to this, you'll need to keep the bolt under pressure with the springs, and then get in there with whatever means you can. I actually substituted with a shotgun cleaning kit, which was great because some of the pieces fit perfectly. And I just kind of improvised my own little cleaning kit. But now that that's cleaned, I wanted to show you guys just exactly what I was referring to with the buffer springs and the danger with the back plate for the stock. So you'll see those rods that are moving in and out of the bolt carrier group. Those rods are what attaches to those buffer springs. So they actually cycle all the way back, and they just about make contact with the back plate. So that's why the manufacturer expressly and very clearly states that they don't want you firing it without the stock attached to it. So with the upper receiver, it's much the same thing. You got to get into some of these finer areas, and a lot of them wouldn't be accessible without the detailed strip. So get into those nooks and crannies. Again, the shotgun cleaning kit was pretty handy because it's a soft material, and it actually gathered a lot of the carbon quite well. Inside the upper receiver, there's actually a little rail that the bolt carrier group sits in. And I found a lot of sand and sediment inside of that, so I got a small rod for a 22 barrel, and I just put it inside the rail and just slid it back and forth to remove some of the buildup. Ultimately, that's where the bolt slides in, and the bolt doesn't do much moving thereafter, but I still want to make sure that I don't have any of the buildup in there. We're going to do a few pull-throughs of the barrel as well. Again, you don't want to feed the rod the opposite way through the barrel. You don't want to fight the rifling. You want to go from the chamber to the muzzle. You don't want to go vice versa. And this is the Hops 9 Elite gun oil that I was referring to. Again, it's fantastic in comparison to CLP. Works very much the same. The bigger difference is that it's slightly thicker, so that you can dab it into certain areas and work the mechanisms, and it doesn't have a tendency of running all over the place. So it's much easier to work with in that respect. As per low temperatures, I can't be certain, but it is rated one of the best gun oils on the market. So I've done some fine oiling inside the bolt carrier group, and I'm starting to reassemble it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to run the mechanism through a few cycles just to ensure that the oil and the weapon is oiled properly, and that there's no grinding or any sort of odd sensations when cycling the weapon. You want to make sure that all the oil is worked into all the finer bits there, and just make sure that you've assembled it correctly. That's the end of the detailed strip for the ISSC and MK22 GSG 15. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We do a lot of giveaways on the channel, and the more popularity I get, the more free stuff I can give you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned.